Welcome, all of you. Okay, so let's dive in. If you guys could super briefly talk about how Jesus has met you in your masculinity and femininity, that would be awesome.
Hello, everyone. So thank you for the introduction. So my name is Joel Renier, and I'm a man. So that's part of it. And yeah, I really am excited actually for this panel because I'm also very passionate about theology of the body. Anyone know about theology of the body out there? Okay. It's all about like what does it mean that we're created as male and female. And I think that like in my life, I'd say Jesus often has met me as a brother. Like in prayer, like often, like I've had many times where it's like it's me and him sitting beside a fire, like a campfire at night, shoulder to shoulder. You know, he's got his arm around me, and he's just encouraging me. He's speaking to me. It's fatherly. It's him seeing me, seeing my goodness, and calling me to greatness. An example, like even from my own life recently, is it was just during Advent. I was just praying, and the Lord was bringing up for me some of my flaws, and I have lots. Okay, but He's nice. He just picked out one, and I had this image of a piece of wood that I was this piece of wood, and He was the master carpenter. And there was just a little kind of pokey piece, a rough piece. And so he was taking whatever that carpentry tool is where they scrape, a thin layer of wood. And he was basically smoothing me out. But when he got to that little kind of jagged piece, he just digs deep and he cuts this huge scoop out. I was like, oh, wow, like God, like I thought it was just like a little thing. And Jesus was speaking to me. He's like, no, Joe, like it seems little to you, but I actually want to do something really big in your life here. And as I was praying, I just really felt him saying, like, I'm the master carpenter and you are my apprentice. And I want to teach you. I want to walk with you through this. And so just this beautiful experience of Jesus meeting me, kind of he's the master, I'm the apprentice. As my prayer time was wrapping up, he just kind of put the bow on it. We're in Advent. And he just gave me this image of the manger. And he says, Joe, like, I'm the master, you're the apprentice. You're also the wood, and I'm working on you. And I'm building you into the manger. That you're going to be what's going to receive me at Christmas. And it's just this beautiful moment of intimacy, of closeness of heart, but it's also this like kind of masculine, like, working with wood, getting a bit dirty. And so it's like an example in my life of how Jesus meets me as a man in my masculinity. So, yeah.
I'm also a man. I'm Father Stéphane Pourriot. So I want to tell you a story that happened to me 13 years ago, and I was in Philadelphia at the time for a conference, just like the Rise Up conference, but different type of conference. And I was inspired to go to a married couple during that conference and ask them to pray over me. And I was already a priest, and they did not hesitate. And I asked the woman in the marriage to actually be the one leading the prayer, but I asked the man to place his hand on my shoulder and no matter what, to leave it there. And during the course of that prayer, I experienced a real resurrection, and in me came together two things that until then had been pitted against each other, and that was compassion and authority. I always had to choose one or the other, or get the short end of the stick with one or the other, but they came together for the first time through that experience of a married couple praying as a man, as a woman over me. So that's what I wanted to share with you right from the bat.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sister Rose Claire. I'm a woman. I just wanted to share a little bit about, I was a missionary for a time with Net Ministries of Canada, and during our training, we had times of with just the men and just the women. And as we went through our time of training with just the women, we dove into our identity, and particularly our identities as daughter, sister, mother, and bride. And I kind of got most of them, the daughter, the sister, the mother. I understood those, but I had never really thought of my identity as a woman in relation to God as bride. So that was kind of the first time that woke up for me. And of course, as you see me now today, of course, I'm very much living in my identity as bride, a bride of Christ, a religious sister. But I think that was the beginning of what now is a very deep and intimate identity that really helps me to relate to Jesus, especially in regards to my feminine heart. And just recently, I've been, I guess, going through a time of deeper healing, and where the Lord is really, I guess, healing me with his love, transforming my heart in different ways and bringing a greater freedom in my life. And I was talking and praying with actually a CCO staff, Minerva, and as she was praying with me, she got an image of, I guess she was asking the Lord, how do you see Sister Rose Claire right now? And the image she got was Beauty and the Beast. And that, I guess, she was seeing me as Beauty, the Lord as the Beast, even though he's not, really like the Beast. But that, particularly the song from the movie where it's called Something Else, where they're starting to see each other in a new light. And there's a part where she highlighted that Beauty no longer shudders at his paw. She's seeing him in a new light, and he's seeing her in a new light. And, they're growing in their love for one another. And so Minerva really kind of sensed that this is how the Lord's seeing me, that in this new intimacy that I'm experiencing with the Lord, he's really, just bringing me to a new place in renewing my identity as his bride, as his beloved. And it was really beautiful. It really spoke to my heart.
I've got my own.
Amazing. Wonderful.
My name's Gabrielle, and I'll just finish the trend. I am also a woman. There are two things that were coming to mind for me. The first one was at the heart of my conversion. I had always been Catholic and had always wanted to follow Jesus. Some of you might be familiar with the intellect and the will and the emotions as three parts of what we need to have a full conversion. At the time, I had made a decision to follow Jesus to a certain extent, so my will had been engaged. And because I had thought through some things, I was like, I think this is a good idea. My intellect was also engaged. But the emotions still needed to be engaged. I was on campus at UBCO, that's where I did my undergrad, and it must have been like midnight one night. I was in a study room trying to finish an essay and simultaneously respond to emails, and also at the same time try to finish a group project and also study for an exam that I had the next morning. And I had a moment where I just realized that I was so done. I was so done with the pace that my life was going at. And it was hard because from the outside, everything about my life was going really well. I was excelling in everything that I had taken on. And even then, like from the outside it looked good, but on the inside I was really struggling. And so in a moment when I'm like literally at my wit's end in this study room, what changed for me is I felt like Jesus saw me. He saw me in a way that no one else did. Everyone else saw this picture-perfect version, but I cried out to God, and I'm like, I need someone to see me for what's really going on right now. And I think that can be true for both men and women, but I think, like for me, it was particularly profound to be seen, to be known, and to be still loved in that, even if my life actually wasn't the image that I had painted it to be. So that was one thing, to be seen by the Lord. That was a really powerful experience. And recently, something that has been really transformative, and I think very particular to like a woman's heart, is I really feel like God's inviting me into his ministry of healing. That's something that's really exciting to me, and perhaps it comes from this like nurturer side of a woman's heart. So maybe the girls can relate. I see that the world is so broken, and I really want to be a part of healing all of God's kids. And so that's a really beautiful aspect of God's heart that I feel like he's giving me in my own life right now.
Wow. Thank you guys for sharing that. It's amazing how God speaks particular to each of our hearts. Joel and Father Stefan, what helps a masculine heart to be drawn towards Jesus?
I want to share with you something that comes out of my experience as a parish priest, welcoming young parents for the baptismal preparation of as they seek to have their kids baptized. I notice time and time again, when I speak to the men and the women that are in front of me and are the young parents of these kids, that what works best for me to draw the men and the women to Jesus that are in front of me is to ask first the man the question. And when I first ask the man the question, typically there's a little bit of terror in the eyes because he's got to think about it. He doesn't have the answer right at his fingertips. It's probably easier for many women to think out loud as they are verbalizing things, what's happening in their heart. It's not happening for every woman, I'm sure, but it does happen for many. But it's probably true for many men that if they have the time to have some silence and think through what they want to think through with the Lord, that they are able to, in the silence, meet him and then speak of what they have met him in that time. So I will always give them the chance to speak first so that they can open their hearts and so that the women in their lives is able to hear what they are thinking, what they are basically verbalizing, and then they both benefit and they both gain from that. So just offering you that insight that if you want a man to give you a hard answer, give him time to think about it, hold him accountable to that particular disclosure, make an appointment, and to the men in the room, show up and deliver what you've been thinking and praying about. So that will solve a lot of things when it comes to the frustration that happens sometimes between men and women as to why we can't immediately share with one another at the same pace and in the same way.
Yeah, totally. Men, we definitely need, like, I know even in my marriage, often, we'll be doing stuff and my wife will be, she's got so many different thoughts she wants to share with me. It's like I'm going to bed, I just want to go to sleep. And then she's like, Joe, and she'll just kind of like everything from the day and everything's so interconnected. And it's just, I'm like, I don't think the way you think. I don't think that deeply about stuff. I'm just kind of, often it feels like I'm just going through my life. And that's actually been like a gift of marriage, is she's teaching me that actually I need to take that time, because she just naturally intuits it. And as men, it actually is a decision we have to make. It's a skill we have to learn. I think that as men, we have an innate call in us to greatness. There's something in each man that wants to do something big. I want to leave a legacy. I'm sure, yesterday during the talk, it started with that scene from Gladiator. And when he says, our actions today, and I heard so many guys around me, they'll go, echo in eternity. And I'm like, every guy's like, I need a tattoo of that, because it just speaks to our heart. I'm sure maybe maybe for the ladies, you're probably like, oh, it's like, Russell Crowe's pretty handsome when he was young, but it probably didn't speak to you in the same way. Because God wrote into our hearts this call of a man to go out of himself. And so I think, guys, when it comes to, approaching Christ, what draws them is we're often drawn to the nobility of Jesus. Guys like the image of Jesus as king. My wife also likes the image of Jesus as king, but when she sees that, it's, and her as princess. I don't think there are many guys who are like, I'm a prince. I'm Jesus' prince. It's like, he's the king, and I'll follow this guy wherever he leads. It's, I want to go out. And in the theology of the body, that's written into the man's body, that actually we are outward. And women are receptive. And so I think there's a lot that men and women can learn from each other, because women just very naturally welcome Jesus in. For us guys, we want to do big things for Jesus, but we struggle with the idea of actually letting him in. Getting real, getting vulnerable. But our hearts are like caves. They're deep, deep caves filled with treasure. But it takes courage to go deep. And so we need to have the courage to not just stay in the mouth of the cave, but actually to let Jesus lead you down into the depths. And so I think, men, we want to go out, and that's written into us, and it's a blessing, but we also need to learn to go in.
Thank you for sharing. In a similar vein, Gabs and Sister Rose Claire, could you share what draws the feminine heart towards Jesus?
Yeah, so just kind of maybe playing off what Joe was just saying, John Paul II talks about how a woman wants to be loved in order to love, and a man wants to love in order to be loved. And so I think for a woman, that being loved, that receptivity, again, that Joe was talking about, that is innate in us. And that, especially in regards to our identities, as I was saying earlier, how God has created the feminine heart. I think what helps is to, sometimes there can be blocks to that. You think of the story of the woman at the well and how she was very kind of closed off at first, but then as Jesus kind of prompted her and showed her that he knew her and kind of went to those deep places within her, she was then able to open up and to respond and to allow herself to be gazed upon by the Lord. And I think that gaze of love, is what really heals the feminine heart in order to be able to open up and receive the love that Jesus wants to give. And I think, too, there's a really important need for a woman to have truth spoken over her. That even if we think back to the Garden of Eden, what the original situation was is that the serpent is there, and she comes to believe the lie. And I think a lot of, with the feminine heart, the battlefield is the mind and the heart, and these lies that the enemy speaks over us just really, can become that block, but that when we have truth spoken over to us, even by a man, or in a way that's where we can truly know that love and receive that love of Christ, that intimate love, that gaze, that pure gaze of Christ that heals, that's when we can, truly be renewed in our feminine heart.
So beautifully said, sister. When I think about this question, it actually immediately brings me to a book called Captivating. Maybe some of the girls in the crowd have read it. And there's a companion book, the guy's version, Wild at Heart. I think that's probably familiar to a lot of you. And they talk about like the 3 core desires of a man and a woman's heart. And I remember reading the 3 core desires of a woman's heart for the first time, and I just thought to myself, how do they know? That's literally me. And in a particular way, the 2 that stand out to me now is, first of all, a desire to be delighted in. And it connects to what I'd experienced in my own conversion, which was to be seen. To be truly delighted in is when you are truly seen. And so when a woman encounters God in such a personal way that he sees her and chooses her, that does something to our hearts in a very profound way. And the other thing, I think that one was more obvious to me. I think I kind of knew that in the back of my mind. But the one that really changed the game for me was recognizing that a woman's heart wants to know that she has an irreplaceable role to play. She wants to know that she can contribute something that is of value. And I think we see that often in the way that the world is today, and even the feminist movement. We're always trying to level up or compare, what you can do, I can do better. And it's coming from this desire to contribute something valuable. And so, again, in the example that I just shared earlier about Jesus calling me into a ministry of healing with him, going about the Father's business, which is a business of healing, I realized that speaks to that desire, a desire to play an irreplaceable role, that there are people that I am called to accompany, to minister to be a part of their healing with Jesus that is unique to me. There's something about my gifts and my presence that is important here. And it's not meant to be a surface level or shallow, oh, she just wants attention, because I think that's a way that it can get twisted. But it's this deep desire that God has created us with as women, because we do have something unique to offer. He wouldn't have created us if we didn't.
Can I just add something? When we were asked to think about, in the lead up to this panel, the definition of the masculine heart, the definition of the feminine heart. This is not an infallible definition, anyone, but this is my definition. The masculine heart is a heart searching for a place to rest, and most open to God in a time of silence and wanting to be fully known by another. The feminine heart is a heart desiring to be seen and heard, embraced without conditions, and most open to God in an intimate conversation.
Thank you for sharing. Gabs, as you were speaking, you were talking about this need, a desire to be needed and irreplaceably needed. Could you speak a little bit about how that relates to maybe what women can learn from the way men relate to Jesus?
That's a great question, Sarah. And I need to re-ponder that in my brain so it makes sense. I think in a big way, you're asking, like, how does it relate to men? And one of the biggest pitfalls that I see between men and women is competition. And so I think that that's one of the first things that I would highlight for myself and for other women, that we don't need to see men and women's strengths as oppositional or in competition. But there's a real, and this comes with maturity, and this comes with like asking Jesus to show us, like, how is this person's strengths complementary to mine, instead of in competition. That's the first thought. Joe, I feel like you have thoughts.
Yeah, like, go back to the Garden of Eden where it all started. The sexual difference of like male and female, it says that they were naked without shame, that initially that was seen actually as an invitation. That Adam saw Eve and Eve saw Adam, and it was this difference, but it was a complementarity that these two are meant to come together. But after sin, actually, the sexual difference became blamed for the whole thing. Adam goes, the woman you gave me told me to do it. And suddenly their difference becomes this competition, right? And one of the consequences of the fall is even like woman that God says, he's like, now your desire will be for the man, but he will lord it over you. And it becomes now this source of tension, but that's not the way it was meant to be. Jesus says, in the beginning, it was not so. And I think the feminine genius, which is a term John Paul II, I think, coined, of receptivity, is actually something for all of us. Right, because there's male and female, but then there's masculine and feminine, and those are, like God is both masculine and feminine, right? Because he doesn't have a gender. Like God the Father is not a man, but he is masculine in that he is the initiator, right? So masculinity initiates and gives the gift, and femininity receives the gift. And so, as women, you just naturally intuit receptivity. It's written into your body. And so women very easily receive Jesus and come to faith quickly. Like we see this on campus, and become leaders very quickly and grow spiritually very quickly. For guys, it's often a long ramp because we struggle with that receptivity. It seems feminine. And guys often will say, oh, like all that emotional stuff, crying, it seems girly, it seems kind of weak, it seems soft. But actually, guys, in light of the masculinity of God, we are all feminine in comparison. With God, we are always going to be the receiver. He is the gift giver, and we receive it. And so men, I think, actually need to learn from women how to receive, how to open my heart before the living God. And we see this example most perfectly in Mary. Mary had a heart that was open to God, and she never once closed it, to the point that Jesus was able to fill her from the inside. And then she was able to make a gift of Jesus out into the world. And we're all called, Mary's the Christian. Like she is the example of what it means to be a Christian. So all of us, men included, need to have a heart that is open enough that Jesus can actually enter into my core. I think for guys, we often like really good ideas. It's like, oh, new crusade, let's go, we're going to change the world. You got to change yourself first. You got to receive the gift first before you can go and start passing it on to other people, because you can't give what you don't have. But that call to, I want to go change the world, I think, like Gavin, we were talking about, and like everyone else, that's also something I think women can learn from the men, is that desire for greatness and to go out and do something big.
Totally. I was thinking about this the other day, that sometimes we joke about this on campus, that you had a good one-on-one or you had a good spiritual conversation with a girl when she's crying. And I think it's funny, and sometimes it's true, but sometimes I think we can, as women, get really caught up in our emotions and low-key spiral, because there's just so much going on and there's so much to unpack and it's all connected and it's overwhelming, and then we kind of just get stuck. And something that I think is really admirable about the masculine heart and the men that I see is just like, let's just go. And they meet God in adventure. And when we think, again, we joke about this on campus, like, oh, the men are going on retreat. What are they going to do? Probably going to go chop some wood, or like climb a mountain. But I think that attitude, and that's something that women can learn from men, that to be willing to go on an adventure, to do something challenging, that's not just internal. We take the internal and we like move it outward, where it's healthy and productive and it doesn't get like spirally. And also to be willing to, kind of connected to being willing to do something hard, but willing to sacrifice. Like, I think men are often called to sacrifice for the women in their lives, and I think it's something that maybe speaks to you guys. Honestly, it's kind of hard for the girls. Like, ask me to do something hard, no thank you. And so I think that that's a way that we can actually grow in the way that we relate to God, and a way that God can mature us and show us like more fully his heart when we embrace that side of it, like the sacrifice, the adventure, the going outward to share Jesus with the world. That's something that men do really well. Do you guys want to add something to that?
Yeah, just to kind of touch on what Joe was saying earlier about, we're all called to this receptivity in a way. Again, in my vocation, and all of our vocations, no matter what they are, have this aspect, but in a particular way, my vocation as a religious sister, I guess we're in a special way called to be an icon of the bride. And we think about the church. Our church is talked about as bride in relation to Christ, the bridegroom. And just to be able to, a way that the feminine heart can use her unique gifts with her identity as bride, to call the whole church to her identity, to have that awakened, and just to, I think that's all.
I'm just going to bring us back to the garden for a moment, the Garden of Eden. There's a mistake often in the way that people read the story, is that they imagine that the serpent is having a conversation with Eve and Adam is on a hike somewhere. But the scriptures is very clear that once Eve gave the fruit to the man, he was with her. And I often let that challenge me as a man. Will you speak up? Will you speak up truth? Will you lay down your life? Why aren't you saying something? The serpent is saying something to your wife. Why aren't you saying anything? Don't you think it's dangerous what's happening? Don't you care? Do something, say something. So I think it's important for us to realize that in the masculine heart, there's also this gift of one thing at a time. I'm focused on the right now, on the next thing to do. Well, then I got to be laser sharp on that, what that one thing is. because that's a gift from me, from the Lord, but it's also a gift to the women in my life. It's a gift to my parishioners who come to me for healing and strength, and who ask sometimes, when I see a number of women in spiritual direction, so many things are connected together, and it's part of what I need to give as a man to say, what's the one thing we need to focus on right now? So don't disqualify each other's gifts, because you need each other's gifts in order to meet Jesus and become all that you're meant to be.
Thank you for sharing all those truths and what we can learn from one another and how we're complementary to one another. To end things off, Father and Joel, what do you want to say to men about evangelizing other men?
Just go do it. But for real, I would say, and I said this earlier, is we can't give what we don't have. Because evangelization is not teaching people about Jesus or about church history or about obscure theological debates. Evangelization is bringing people to a personal, intimate, daily experience of living life in union with Jesus Christ, who is the fulfillment of every heart. So if you're not living in a place where I know Jesus, I know him, he is my master, and he is actively discipling me. Like that image I had of the carpenter. Like, he's actually teaching me how to live my life. And I'm hearing it from the source. Like, I'm talking with Jesus, and he's guiding me. We need to get to that place. And if you're like, I don't have that, then we've got to learn from our sisters. Open wide the door of your heart. And as Father Stefan said, you actually need to take the time to do it. We need to go beyond good ideas and big conversations and actually take the time in silence to open our hearts up to God. And then we need to, when we have that, we have this fire to go out. And so when you're going, we need to have courage and step into the fight of actually talking to the boys that I usually go drinking with and say, hey, like Dad said last night, my dad is Andre Renier. I'm like spoiling it. That was my dad last night. I'm going to Mass. But imagine if that guy turned to my dad and said, do you want to come with me? Okay, you got to start making those invitations. Maybe you've been in CCO for a while if you're on a CCO campus, and the missionary said, hey, you should think about leading a faith study, but you've never once had the courage to actually do something about it. Step in. You know, after these sessions, not just going and being like, yo, where do you want to go grab a bite to eat? Turn to your brother and say, what did Jesus do in your heart tonight? Or when someone asks you, actually have the courage to say, something big happened in my life. I felt Jesus moving in me. Because guys, that's not soft. It's not emotionalism. It's real. It's actually more real than anything you've ever experienced. And we need to talk about Jesus in a way that is exciting, that calls people to a life of greatness, a life of mission, a life where the doors of life are opened wide. If it's just intellectual, like an intellectual massage of conversation, we're missing the whole point. Because I could get intellectual stuff anywhere in anything. We're inviting people into a dynamic relationship of apprenticeship under the master. And when we do that and we know Jesus, then all the things of the church, the theology, it comes alive. And I'm hungry for it, not because I want to learn more, but because I want to learn more about Jesus. my master, my king. So you need to talk about Jesus in a way that actually grabs people by the throat. Like grab them by the shirt. You don't know what you're missing. He wants to teach you. He wants to walk with you. But boys, we got to walk with him, and we got to open our heart. And then you have to step into the mission. The women are holding it down. Like, thank you to all the women in this room. You guys are holding it down. And boys, we got to start pulling our part. We got to go within and let Jesus lead us out, and let's set this world on fire. Amen?
I'll give you a practical thing to do. When you go home, wherever home is, call your parish priest, talk to him, text him if you've got his cell phone, even if it's 10 o'clock at night, and ask him to be part of the setup of a 24-hour adoration at your parish that you're going to personally help staff. 24 hours, starting in the morning until the very next morning. And to the men in this room, pick up the night shift to make sure that every woman that walks in that church is feeling safe, and take the time with Jesus. If you give him your time, he's going to give you 100-fold back of your sacrifice. And in the lead up, in the aftermath of the 24 adorations every month, people will start waking up to Jesus and walking through the doors of the church. It's happening at my church for the past 3 years. Do it. And it started with a 20-year-old that sent me a text at 10 o'clock at night. Father, I'd like you to do this. Would you be game? I'll help out. What do you say when you get that kind of invitation? You go for it.
So, just pondering, evangelizing the masculine and feminine heart. I think what it really comes down to is spiritual fatherhood and spiritual motherhood. So that, and also just praying about what are these particular qualities of the masculine and feminine heart that are conveyed or manifested through each heart respectively in regards to evangelization. There's a particular quality of strength with a man. That was the word that kind of came to me. There's a strength. And with a woman, there's a beauty. And it's not that a man, like, there is also a beauty in the man's strength and also a strength in the woman's beauty. But there is this particular quality that each has that is a beautiful gift that they bring forward, that the Lord has given them in order to touch other lives. And I think in particular for a woman, St. Edith Stein talks about this idea of the ethos. So the ethos is kind of like the atmosphere or the ambiance that a woman can help create just by living from her feminine identity, and that she does create this atmosphere, this ambiance of beauty and order and warmth, and kind of like a nurturing, and that really is evident through her identity as a spiritual mother. And so as we're reaching out as spiritual mothers, us women, just to kind of celebrate that gift and really, open yourselves to the Lord in using that particular gift that God has given of this ability to create this atmosphere of beauty, order, warmth, and a welcome, a nurturing. I know in our community, I have one of my sisters here with me, actually, Sister Miriam Josephine. We're the Queenship of Mary community. And this is one of the things that's really dear to our hearts in the sense that we have charism of hospitality, and in exercising our spiritual motherhood, we It even says in our Constitution, we try to create an atmosphere of conducive to a person entering into a personal relationship with Jesus. So just by living our feminine hearts and actually modeling Mary, that's the key of it. I think Mary is a key player in evangelizing the feminine heart because she's our model, she's our mother, she's the one who all of us hope to emulate, in the sense that she has the most feminine heart of anyone that ever lived. And so as we're reaching out, as we're creating these atmospheres of warmth, we can be modeling our Blessed Mother and just bringing her children into her heart, and just to be able to then, as each person feels that warmth, that nurturing, that beauty, the heart then begins to rest. I know Father mentioned the masculine heart of rest, that it gives this place for people to rest in order to actually open their hearts to the Lord.
I want to leave you guys with 2 very practical things. The first one, I think, for the ladies, we got to leave some space for the guys, okay? We got to take a moment to think in situations where there's men and women present. It might be easy for you to, right away, I've got thoughts and I want to share them. And they're good thoughts, and you should share them, and you will. But maybe invite the guys in the circle, give them some space, and then invite them to share, because they have something important to say too, and I want us to learn from them. The second thing that I would say is, ladies, let's not just treat Jesus like another girlfriend that we vent to. And in your accompaniment of other women, be aware of that pattern, that sometimes their prayer time is just a therapy session, and they're talking a lot and they're not really listening to what the Lord is saying to them. And so check yourself in your own prayer life and ask your people, what is Jesus saying to you, not just what they're saying to them. One of the things that I think can help us to not just feel like we're in therapy with Jesus is do things that are exciting and adventurous, because God meets us in the adventure. Let's learn from our brothers on this one. A couple months ago, I went on a hike with a couple of my girls, and I don't know if that was necessarily what I would have naturally gone to. Naturally, I think I would have been let's go for coffee, let's talk. But we went on a hike, and we ended up having the best conversations as we're huffing and puffing up this mountain. And then what was so amazing too was to be at the top of the mountain and really taking in God's beauty, which is very natural to us as women. But it came through the context of doing something hard and doing something sacrificial. And it was just this really awesome, holistic approach to integrating your emotions with the adventure and doing something hard, and Jesus meeting us in that. Here's another thought, folks.
I have one more thought. And it's actually something that happened recently. There's a very, very good friend of mine. I love this guy so much. He's just such a good man. And my wife and I both really love this guy. And so also I want to give freedom for men are naturally going to know how to reach out to men. But women, you can have such a blessing on the men in your life and help bring them to Christ, and vice versa. And this young man recently actually wrote a card to myself and my wife, just thanking us for our influence on his life. And I'm just seeing the masculine and feminine in it. Basically, he's as he was kind of writing to me, it was, thank you for all the encouragement, for the challenges and the way that you've really pushed me and modeled for me a life in Christ. And then he writes to my wife, and it's just so beautiful. And he says, it was actually your receptivity. He says, every time I came to you, I never felt judged. I just always felt like welcomed by you. And that was God's love for me. It's actually like in the complementarity of the masculine and feminine, we were able to bless this young man. And so women, speak life into the men around you. Call them higher. Share about your vulnerability and model for them and help them learn to be vulnerable. And men, speak life into the women. Be men who affirm from a genuine place, not a flirty place. Like, love your sisters. Receive your sisters. Not to get anything back, but as a sacrifice. Just as Christ loved the church. So yeah, we can both reach both.
I just wanted to also share a little story. Actually, it's pretty cool because myself and Father Stefan have gotten to do ministry together quite a few times, and it usually ends up in improv dramatization. That's kind of a fun thing that ends up happening. But just recently we had a mission at Father's Parish, and the sisters were helping out, and basically we had this time of prayer, adoration, and where the families could come forward and receive prayer ministry. And I just thought it was such a beautiful example of how even the complementarity of the masculine and feminine heart that can evangelize together in a complementary way, and that myself and Father were able to be a prayer team to pray over these families, but we each, I think, brought a unique gift to the people we were ministering to. In that Father, he took the lead. He spoke the truth, and very confident and firm truths over his parishioners. And in the meantime, myself interceding and just waiting on the Holy Spirit to receive a word. And then, the Holy Spirit really works. Just to be able to share a word of encouragement and to bring these families into an encounter with Christ. And I think just to be able to bring those unique strengths together was very beautiful. But then even more than that, just to have, I guess a modeling of what spiritual fatherhood and spiritual motherhood can look like. Just our simple presence to be there for these families, I think, what we said, what we prayed for, I'm sure touched them deeply, but through what the Holy Spirit was saying, but also just to see that model of the masculine and feminine heart of the Father taking leadership and myself kind of, stepping back to intercede and receive the word, I think was also a silent, powerful witness.
Thank you all so much for sharing. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I would like to invite you all to join me in thanking all of our lovely panelists. Thank you all.